Hello everybody, today I'm watching Animals in Space, A Brief History by Salmonella Academy. The only animal in space that I've ever heard of was, I believe, a dog sent into space by the Soviet Union. I'm assuming there's also been a monkey sent to space, because I saw that in the thumbnail. Let's see what else they sent into space before.
Hey kids, animal test subjects have always been an important facet of science, since they allow us to study physiology in more destructive ways than we could get away with.
What is he doing to that monkey's
So it should come as
brain?
no surprise that, over the years, there's been a lot of creatures haphazardly thrown at the cosmos against their will. Here's a bunch of smelly
I'm
animals.
pretty sure any animal that's been sent into space has just died there. I don't think they ever
not even close.
recovered any of them.
More so just a highlight reel of the ones I found the most interesting. So the Great Zoo in the Sky was first founded in 1947 when the US launched a craft containing a bunch of fruit flies 68 miles into the air in order to see what kind of horrible mutants would get made from all the cosmic radiation up there. Unfortunately, they were totally fine, so the Earth was like,
I doubt there would be anything. I mean,
space and not die instantly, supple. And the next year they decided to send up a rhesus macaque named Albert, which it seems kind of like jumping the gun to go from decided to send up like, hey, living things can go into space and not die instantly, supple. And the next year they decided to send up a rhesus macaque named Albert, which it seems kind of like jumping the gun to go from barely alive specks to basically a person in one step. If it were me, I would have thrown like a frog or a gerbil in between there, but whatever, I'm no cosmopolitan. Anyway, Albert died of suffocation on the way up and never really made it to space alive. Fun fact, this rocket was actually a V-2 missile stolen from the Germans after World War II. So just in case any of you have any sympathy for those Nazi characters, they're technically responsible for the death of a poor innocent space monkey. Pretty condemning if you ask me. But I guess the US felt pretty bad about it, so they decided to deal with their grief by naming the next monkey Albert II. Pretty unhealthy coping mechanism according to my shrink, but she also thinks Punk is dead, so what does she know? This Albert actually made it into space alive through a grand effort incorporating all the incredible cutting-edge technology.
Did they actually get him back alive though, or did they only recover the body?
The parachute, so Albert II turned into a fine red mist on impact, which just goes to prove the age-old adage: you can lead a monkey
I'm sure that was
to
fun
space,
to clean up,
but you can't make him land. There were a few more Alberts after this. Albert III fucking exploded. Albert IV made it up, but he had another tissue paper parachute what don't work for heck, so he's out.
Did any of them survive?
Again, bad chute, liquefied on impact, until finally, in 1951, on Albert number 6, they figured out how to make a big blanket that consistently makes you not immediately die when you fall from the sky. And the monkey was recovered alive from the capsule, alongside his 11 mouse roommates. Of course, he died 2 hours later, but hey, still counts. Earlier that same year, Russia launched 2 little pupniks named... Of course, he died 2 hours later, but hey, still counts. Earlier that same year, Russia launched 2 little pupniks named Tsigan and Dzik, both of whom came back unharmed. These 2 were the first vertebrates to ever leave Earth and come back alive. Then in 57, the Reds snagged another achievement by putting the first living thing into orbit, besides the bacteria clinging to Sputnik 1, but they're losers, we don't talk about them. It's living thing into orbit, besides the bacteria clinging to Sputnik 1, but they're losers, we don't talk about them. Specifically,
that doesn't count.
One brave and daring dog in the streets of Moscow. Probably the most famous animal to ever go into space. You know its name well. That dog is, of course, Airbud. Unlike those other guys we talked about, Laika was never planned to be recovered intact, since we barely knew how to put something into orbit by this time, let alone bring it back. But they still wanted to make sure she stayed alive long enough to at least reach space. So before the mission, they put her through the most rigorous canine space camp that Russia had to offer, throwing her in a centrifuge for a while to get her used to G-force, making her cage progressively smaller to get her used to cramped spaces, which made her just not shit anymore at all, but that's a different story. They also switched her diet to a special high nutrition gel at all, but that's a different story. They also switched her diet to a special high nutrition gel that she would have eaten after takeoff. You know, had her brain not crapped out from overheating within the first few hours. In 59, the US strapped 2 monkeys to the nose cone of a Jupiter missile and actually got them back alive afterwards, which is crazy mostly because these things withstood 38 Gs of acceleration. For context, that's the force that makes even trained pilots lose consciousness times 4,
definitely killed them.
This thing times 12, or roughly the same forced experience when you realize that's not a normal speed bump, but one of those evil tiny ones that ruin your life. You know the ones. Well, that's what you get for doing 25 near a hospital, Sam. Well, hey, good thing I'm already here, considering the ballistics test that just went down between the roof of my car and my
it's already next to the hospital, so it's fine.
Jesus.
Those speed bumps are just a perfect example of a hospital creating more customers for itself. customers, well, patients. You know, they put that next to a hospital, people crash, and they can immediately go in for treatment. It's just good business.
So in 61, we graduated from monkeys to great apes, sending up a chimpanzee named Ham. Remember Space Chimps? Yeah, it was that. Frame for frame, Andy Samberg and all. What's special about Ham is that he was actually trained to pull levers and slap buttons while up.
Back to the speed bumps. The hospital has the supply of medication. And now, by putting the speed bumps there, they're creating the demand, which are the people who crash there because of those bumps. So they can immediately go in.
Up in the ship, being rewarded banana pellets for completing tasks and getting his feet tased whenever he messed up. Sounds like a cartoon, I know, but I promise it's for real. Meanwhile,
Well,
the
sounds
Soviets were
like
busy putting a big,
torture.
bald, smart ape into orbit, no big deal. France saw the US and Russia
I mean,
sending
just
up monkeys and
electrocuting
dogs and felt left out, so in 63 they launched a cat into space, and we're like, yeah, that's cool and unique. I'm one of the popular kids now. In 68, the
Did they
Soviets
get him
saw
back?
the rabbit making rice cakes on the moon
I
and
guess
said,
we'll never know.
How about a tortoise for that hair? Launching 2 of them into deep space, all the way around the moon and back to Earth, where they were recovered alive after their capsule landed in the ocean. Kinda cheating when you are your own crash suit, but an impressive
So
feat
what about the
regardless.
cat?
In 73, we put mummy chogs in space. What's a mummy chog? It's one of these things. Like a fish, but real rough and tumble. Tolerates low oxygen, weird pressure, high salinity, dishwasher safe, Energy Star rated, you name it, sister. At first they could only swim in circles, but after a couple weeks, they actually adapted to zero-G and figured out how to maneuver properly. Even more interesting, we also brought mummy chog eggs, and when these hatched, the little mummy choglets knew how to swim in zero-G immediately. Kinda spooky, honestly. That same mission also set up some
evolution,
spiders who managed to
adaptation?
spin some webs. Trash webs, mind you, but hey, they managed. In 78, the mummy choglets knew how to swim in zero-G immediately. Kinda spooky, honestly. That same mission also sent up some spiders who managed to spin some webs. Trash webs, mind you, but hey, they managed. In 78, the Muppet
That's
Show
cool.
aired Pigs in Space for the first time. In 85, we cut off the arms of a bunch of newts and sent them up to see if they grow back the same way. The reasoning behind this being, if a newt can't grow stuff back, then an astronaut with a paper cut probably can't either. Fortunately, they rearmed themselves at
So
the
what,
normal
was
rate,
it to
so all's
test
good
if,
on that
if
front.
wounds
Around the
in
same
space
time,
would
NASA
heal?
actually had talks with Sesame Street
same
about
way that
sending
on Earth?
Big Bird up on the space shuttle as a publicity stunt. This is real. The plan ultimately fell through after they realized Big Bird is fucking giant and unwieldy at all times, literally the worst possible choice for a celebrity cameo on a space shuttle. So instead they sent a school teacher in his place. And then the Challenger fucking exploded. Let me reiterate. There is a timeline not too far from this one where Big Bird is a casualty in the single worst astronautical disaster in history. A tiny evil part of me almost wishes that happened. Like, that's just so indescribably absurd. In the early 90s, we set up some baby jellyfish.
Actually, no,
to grow up
I'm
in
not gonna
space
say anything.
just
That would
for
be
laughs.
fucked up.
They figured out how to maneuver just fine, but when we brought them back down, they literally didn't have a concept of gravity and couldn't orient themselves properly in their new environment. Which, being a jellyfish is the easiest thing there is. You just kind of exist, maybe squirm a little now and then. So when you manage to somehow mess that up, you know things have gone seriously wrong. In 2003, the US
What
set up a
happened
bunch
to
of
them?
invertebrates, including silkworms,
I'm
spiders,
assuming they
carpenter
didn't
bees,
live
and
long.
harvester ants. Whoops, they exploded. A bunch of invertebrates, including silkworms, spiders, carpenter bees, and harvester ants. Whoops, they exploded. In '07, some tardigrades
Great.
went up, totally exposed to the vacuum of space for 10 days, which, surprise, surprise, they were fine. On that same mission, a cockroach,
those?
carpenter bees, and harvester ants. Whoops, they exploded. In '07, some tardigrades went up, totally exposed to the vacuum of space
Okay.
for 10 days, which, surprise, surprise, they were fine. On that same mission, a cockroach gave birth, creating the first organism that we know of to ever have been conceived outside of Earth. And
So a
finally, in
cockroach
2018,
was the first thing
Elon
that
Musk
gave
sent a
birth
big
in
basket
space.
conceived outside of Earth. And finally, in 2018, Elon Musk sent a big basket of mice to the International Space Station. Just, you know, 'cause he can. So those are just a handful of God's creatures
already
who got
sent
to
rats
experience the
into
majesty
space,
of not knowing up from
earlier
down.
though, so
If
what
you're
was the
like
point
me, you're
of doing it
probably a little
again?
jealous. Why does an ugly ape get to go into space, but I don't? I wish to bear witness to the music of the
because-
spheres first.
Because most people don't care if some random monkey dies, but you're actually a human, so that would be a disaster and a lawsuit incoming, possibly. Because a human life has much more value than a monkey.
Firsthand, in a way that a lower creature could never appreciate. You know why you feel like that? Because you're a nerd. And what better way to fill that space-shaped space in your shriveled nerd heart than
Although,
a...
actually, these days, if you sent an animal into space and it died, the backlash would probably be the same as if you sent a human to space and they die. The backlash would be pretty much identical in this day and age, because for some reason people care about random animals. I mean, I care about animals too, but I'm not gonna go fucking riot in the streets because an animal died while on the way to space. But people
Vast
would.
collection of high-quality documentaries. That's why you need to
Oh wait,
try
that's the end of the video. Never mind. Well, I wasn't aware they sent that many animals into space. I also wasn't aware there were 5 casualties before Albert number 6 finally survived. Poor monkeys, but I mean, I guess it's in the name of science, so it was worth it. Plus, it's just monkeys. It's better to send monkeys into space and have them die than send humans up there and have them die instead, you know? It's just a logical decision. The monkey is the closest thing to a human you'll get, so they have to be the test subject. Lucky for us, unlucky for them. Well, anyway, like, subscribe, comment. The link to my Discord server is down in the description below, so check that out if you want. And I will see you in the next video.